let people in on Zoom. Again, this is my maiden voyage doing this on my phone, so I appreciate your patience.
I'm gonna be at the class tonight
Let people in on it.
Yes.
at 5. It was a good class.
It's very good class. I just was sick and I didn't have a voice last week.
Uh-huh. Gonna be at the class tonight.
Let people in.
Melissa, do you read Hebrew?
I don't, but I'm gonna start going. Hey,
Tonight? Yeah, 5 o'clock. She sent out, I guess it's a different link. She said both would work. One previously she sent out, but she sent one this morning.
okay. Let me send it to you. Thank you. I'm not really checking this.
Right, let's see. So, I want to welcome those on Zoom. And thank everybody in advance for your patience. This is my maiden voyage running this class on my phone, which I'd like to say was something I planned to do all along. Unfortunately, the real reason is I showed up here and realized I'd forgotten to bring my iPad. So, I'm giving this a shot. People can hear me okay? Okay, sweet. All right, I'm glad that I'm heard and everything like that. And we do have Richard, Caitlin, and Elizabeth with me here at the Synagogue Library. So glad to have everybody. And we're going to continue our talk about Jewish prayer. And actually, just before we went live, we had a couple of questions from those here in person regarding, which I think bears repeating, questions regarding when and why we bow, and when and why, if you've seen people take 3 steps back and 3 steps forward, why that is. So, in terms of the when, it's honestly, it's dependent on the customs that we have inherited. And what if you want to know, if you want to ask what is the rhyme or reason why we bow here and not there, I don't think I can give you really an answer on that. And I think trying to go into that would probably be a topic that would go beyond, an introductory level exploration. This is a long way of saying I don't know, because I honestly don't know. It's just how I mean, but I'm pretty sure it has to do with how different customs have emerged. In terms of when you've seen people take 3 steps back and 3 steps forward, the idea is that is supposed to represent an approach to God, or the opposite of an approach to God. In other words, to the recessional, to walk away. In both cases, we are doing so with a sense of anticipation and respect for the people that are for if we do so for a human monarch, how much more so would we do so for the ultimate sovereign? So that's the idea behind that. And by the way, I have no problem with going into the weeds on certain things. There may be points where I might have to say, this goes a little bit beyond introduction, because I want to be able to forge that balance. It's a delicate balance, but we try our best. Are there other questions offhand regarding Jewish prayer that you want to explore at the moment, or are we good at the moment? Okay, on Zoom. All right. So now for my next trick. Let's take a look at sharing the photo that I had been sharing up to this point. I'm pretty sure I still got it in my collection. If not, if the photo is not there, then I will just talk. Oh, I got the photo. Okay. And so now this photo is so this photo once again is that of the structure of a general morning service. We've gone over this the last couple of times. If you'd like, uh, and I can either describe, I can also send a copy if you would like this photo. And it's essentially the outline. What we have talked about in our previous two classes, where we've talked about introduction to prayer, we've talked about, first of all, sort of the heart of, sort of the core, meaning the prayers of Shema and the Amidah and the blessings surrounding it. We've also, last week we also talked, I'd say in pretty fair detail about Kaddishes and what they represent. So I want to talk about today some of the other stuff, to put it scientifically, some of the other stuff. And one thing to keep in mind is that, again, I use these different metaphors to describe the structure of Jewish prayer. And so one that I'll go back to right now is the idea of exercise, right? If you decide to jog and you just go right into a full sprint within 5 seconds, you're going to be sorry, right? So we warm up, right? We stretch, we stroll, we do a light saunter, and it goes from there. So um, somewhere along the line, the idea that we need to lengthen our warm up emerged. So technically, could you do basically the Shema and the Amidah, maybe a few prayers that surround them, and be good and be done in terms of what you need to do? Technically, yes. Aha. Oh, an order for a picture. Okay, I will try to remember to send. Um, so you'd probably be good. The question is, can you arrive at that prayer mindset so quickly and so immediately? Now, what I'll tell you is that we've been talking about the structure mainly of the morning service because it is by far the longest of the three services, morning, afternoon, and evening. However, so with afternoon and evening services, there is not nearly the level of buildup toward those core prayers as there are, as you'll find in Shacharit, in the morning service. Why is that? I think the most reasonable answer is because we're already awake. We're already in the midst of our day. Now, maybe you could argue, depending on when you're saying the evening prayers, maybe you can say, okay, you're getting, maybe it's like, okay, I'm really tired. I just need to, maybe you need a little bit of a wake up call, but, so that'd be a fair argument. But I would say that in general, the idea is that you've already got momentum. In the morning, you're trying to build up your momentum to get to these core prayers. And so that's why you have two things that are listed here on the picture, and I'll describe and spell for those who are here in person. There is the early morning blessings known as Birchot HaShachar. Birchot HaShachar, I would say Birchot, and then Shachar, Shachar, would be how I would try to spell it in English. It works better in Hebrew, but you get the idea. Birchot HaShachar means opening blessings. And now, some of those opening blessings, by the way, are some of the most popular blessings out there, which is one of the why I say popular is because people have written melodies to it. And also, especially when you're teaching young kids, or no, you don't have to be a kid. I mean, just somebody who's, relatively new to it. Um, these, uh, these prayers can really speak to them. They really can be helpful because the ideas are relatively basic and straightforward. There's a lot to be said for that. So, for instance, you have a set of blessings early in the morning service, early in what we call Birchot HaShachar, which is literally Baruch Atah Adonai, blessed are you Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, God, ruler of the universe, who does blank. Now, I think uh, I think all of you here in this room were at the service yesterday.
Mhm.
And the way that Rabbi Shush does it is different than how I usually do it. But she likes to do like that intro, the intro Baruch Atah Adonai, and then say something in English. And so it's more interpretive. It's one way to do it. I go by, I would say, the more traditional text on that. But what are the things that we are saying thank you for? Again, the idea is that this is warm up. And since we are warming up, we are not feeling quite as, let's say, sophisticated as perhaps we would when we are more awake. As I may have mentioned in this space or something else, um, uh, you know, uh, usually the first words out of my mouth when the alarm goes off are words that I should not repeat here in this class.
It's not a blessing, is it?
It's not a blessing. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's I'm not a morning person. I should say, so I have to, times when I do have to wake up in the morning, I have to push. So, um,
Rabbi,
yes,
I have a quick question.
sure.
I'm old, memory problems are there, and some days I forget the Moda Ani.
Hmm.
Like on those days when I forget it, do I just say it right then or just like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow?
Um, I would say, yeah, when you remember it, that's fine. And we can talk about that in a couple moments. That's one distinct from the ones I was speaking of, but I was gonna get to that. So all good.
Sorry.
No, no, you're going, not a problem, not a problem. So yeah, but I would say, yeah, that if you forget to say Modéani, when you remember it, say it. That's fine. So we'll talk about that. We'll go more into that in a moment. Um, so what are the things that list of those blessings? It's saying, thank you, God, for actually the first one's great. The first one is thank you, God, for giving me awareness between night and day. And actually, if you were to take that extremely literally, it literally says, thank you, God, for granting me the wisdom through the rooster. Like, rooster? What? Because let's face it, what was the alarm clock for everybody up until, however many years ago? The rooster, right? So thank you, God, for giving me, for granting us the sound of the rooster so we knew when to wake up. I mean,
That's my alarm clock. I have a
oh,
rooster on
oh,
my
you have,
alarm
yeah.
clock.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. No, no, it's great. So, I mean, so it just seems, I mean, it's like, really? But yeah, it's like, maybe today you'd say, thank you, God, for your, you know, Apple alarm. But okay. But that's still what we're doing. So that's okay. So that's so it starts with that. And then it says, thank you, God, for making me, like, for instance, a free person. Thank you, God, for making me a Jew. Thank you, God, for creating me in your image. Now, by the way, those prayers have gone through an evolution, at least in the conservative movement. This is one of the times where what I'll tell you is distinct for the conservative movement, or at least, yeah, or Reform movement actually has this in common as well. But in an Orthodox prayer book, instead of saying thank you, God, for making me a Jew. It says, thank you, God, for not making me a non-Jew. Okay. Then instead of saying, thank you, God, for making me a free person, it says, thank you, God, for not making me a slave. All right. And then, and this was the most controversial, and this is the one that the conservative movement and reform both changed for what I believe is an important reason. There would there would be a different prayer for in Orthodox prayer because there are different prayers for men and women. Women says, "Thank you, God, for creating me according to your will." And for men, they would say, "Thank you, God, for not making me a woman." Not good. Not. I mean, really. I mean, like you know. And now, I should be fair in explaining why, what the logic that has been explained to me. In fairness, and I want to, I will say that I disagree with it, but I, do want to mention, which is that, oh, well, women are not obligated. The argument goes, and this is, from somebody else, the argument goes that women are not obligated to do nearly as many commandments as men are in Orthodox tradition. And therefore, thank you for not making me a woman so that I can do all of these extra commandments. That's one explanation. Another explanation is, well, women are on a higher spiritual plane. Therefore, they don't have to do these extra commandments. So thank you, God, for giving me the opportunity to give these commandments. My counter to those arguments is that if they really believed that women are on a higher spiritual plane, then the prayer for women would be, thank you, God, for making me on a higher spiritual plane. Right? If they really believe that, honestly. Now, please understand that I am not, I know many, many Orthodox Jewish men who treat women beautifully, with respect, with care, and and maybe they observe things in sort of this separate but equal way, but they do indeed appreciate women, and I that is important to know. However, the ideas like these can, in my opinion, make it easier for people to tilt toward misogyny.
Mhm.
And that's why it changed, as it needed to. So now we all say, thank you, God, for making me in your image. And then there are prayers that are not nearly as controversial, like thank you, God, for clothing the naked. Thank you, God, for healing the sick. I mean, like, and thank you, God, for crowning Israel with splendor. And thank you, God, for giving strength to the weary. Those sorts of things. Those are your sort of opening blessings. Now, let's move a little backwards. All right. What Jenny mentioned, which is the modeh ani or moda ani, right? Men typically say modeh, women say moda because of just it's a grammatical thing. It's not that's all it is, just the grammar. It means, and it's a one sentence thing that the common and the common thing is that you actually say it. That's actually the first thing you're supposed to say when you wake up. First thing you're supposed to say when you wake up, not counting the thing that I often say when the alarm goes off. But once you have your wits about you, right? What are you saying? What does that mean? I'm going to give you a summary of it, which is, thank you, God, for essentially allowing me to wake up and returning a portion of my soul to me. there is an idea in Jewish spirituality that when we sleep, 1/60th of our soul dies. And then when we wake up, it is restored back to us. Now, why 1/60th? I don't know why they came up with that specific number, but it's a number meant to meant to convey a tiny amount. Why they chose 60th, I don't know, but they chose that. It's sort of how we say, "Oh, I'll give you a million reasons why." Blah blah blah. Hold on just a second. So, give you a million reasons why you do this. Do you have a million? Probably not, but you have a lot. So it's like we choose million as meaning a lot or 1,000, whatever it is. Yes, sorry. Go ahead.
I don't know. This is just sort of a little unnerving.
Okay, sure.
What's going on with the other 40%?
What's happening with the rest of it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, we still have the rest of it.
So it stays with us.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
mean, so this is not to say that that every time we sleep, we are essentially without life. That's not the meaning behind it. What I would say, though, is that I think the way I like to look at it, though, is to say, you know, every time we wake up is a miracle. Every time we wake up and get the opportunity to face a new day,
It's a gift.
it's a gift. Exactly. Right? Every day is a gift. So,
It's like
uh,
a new the 60% is refreshed.
so by the way, it's only 1/60th, like the fraction.
Oh, I thought you meant 60%.
60%. Well, that would be a whole other thing. No,
Okay.
yeah, no, that's no, I hear you. That'd be a whole different thing.
Okay.
And by the way, people say it like in bed. I mean, they literally say it. I mean, like the first sort of conscientious moment that they have. So that's an example of, and again, you're talking about, thoughts at its most basic, and I'm not saying basic in a bad way, just basic as in like, oh, God, thank you for giving me another day. Thank you for keeping me going. So that's something that is often said early on.
Rabbi, I keep sorry to keep interrupting you.
You're fine. You're fine.
The one that we took and ran with, it's translates, she says, grateful am I before you, living enduring King, for returning to me my soul in mercy. Great is your faithfulness.
Mhm.
So that, to me, now that I think about it from what you said, returning to me my soul,
Mhm.
my soul, I mean, it saying, it sounds like it's saying my soul goes to God while I'm asleep.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I don't know enough about that spiritual tradition to know where it goes. I would guess either it goes to God or perhaps an offshore account in Cayman Islands. But much more likely to God. And so yeah. So in terms of where it goes, yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Um, and again, keep in mind, this is, I would say, a spiritual tradition. It is not something that I would say is, um, that it's something that we necessarily all have to believe, right? Um, I think, in terms of core beliefs, this is not one of them. So keep in mind that the spiritual tradition in Judaism teaches a lot of different things that I think that many of which I think are plausible within Jewish tradition, but that doesn't mean we necessarily have to hang on to all of those ourselves. Partially because when we talk about the mystical traditions of Judaism, those date back less than 1,000 years, which might sound like a long period of time, but when you look at the scope of Jewish history, that's actually just a fraction. So, to say, but by the way, it's important to make that distinction, right? It's important to say, like, okay, because it is very tempting that every time we read, oh, there's a Jewish saying of this, there is a Jewish teaching of that, that automatically that it is just as important as every other thing we've learned. And I would say that that if you don't hear it a lot, then it's not what I would say, like a core, like everybody believes this. If you want to take it on, if it gives you meaning, if it helps, you to, if it brings you closer to, I would say, more core beliefs and more core, and more importantly, more core actions, great. If not, okay. I would say also that uh, Jewish thoughts on the afterlife, which is a whole other discussion, which we can broach at some point in this journey. Jewish views of the afterlife. There is no uniform Jewish view on the afterlife. There are theories, and there are things that I would say have a larger following than others. But the basic idea is that we don't know. But if but the good thing about it is that it gives you a range of belief. It gives you a range of things you can believe about it. Um, uh, I would, I mean, so I think that's an important distinction to make. And it's nice to honestly have a somewhat of a diversity of beliefs. I think, though, that when it comes to beliefs, you've got to, when you're looking at core beliefs, I mean, you really have to start with the Shema. That's why the Shema has that important place, right? The idea of Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, right? God is God. God is, God is one. That's pretty core. Other things, maybe not as much. Good questions, all. I mean, absolutely good questions. So those are some of the Birkot HaShachar. Those are some of the early prayers. And then before you get to, a call to worship in the morning, you have what's known as Pesukei de Zimra. Pesukei, I would spell that P-S-U-K-E-I, and then de Zimra, D''Zimrah. Would be a pretty good score in Scrabble, although I wouldn't play it. Pesukei de Zimra. Pesukei de Zimra literally means verses of song. It's kind of a redundant phrase, honestly, but essentially, like, then you're getting into, and a lot of these prayers are actually excerpts or entire psalms. Now, I teach a class on psalms twice a month, on Monday evenings. I'm actually having my next one tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. It's earlier than I normally do it. And you're welcome to join that class on Zoom if you haven't already. Um, and we literally go, verse by verse, line by line in different psalms. And we're trying to go in order. We're actually on Psalm 25, so we're at the 1/6 point of all the psalms. There are 150 of them. If you're not familiar with psalms in general, um, uh, they are easily the most cited books in the Hebrew prayer cycle. They are incredibly useful. And the reason why I say useful is that it gives us words to say when sometimes words fail us. And over the course of the Psalms, they go through pretty much every kind of emotion over the course of the 150 Psalms. They go through all kinds of emotion. There are certain Psalms that are better for certain occasions. There's no doubt. And there's a range in what they cover. But like I said, certain Psalms were selected for these early prayers, the Psuke de Zimra, these early parts of our service. So uh, uh, those who have taken my Psalms class will have already heard this or might know this already. Um, there is a notion or an idea that the Psalms were written by King David. There is little to no scholarly evidence that that is actually true. However, if we know the story of King David, and that's part of what I'm doing right now on my blog. It's actually we're in the middle of the story of King David. To imagine David saying some of these psalms at particular points in his life can be extremely useful. It's like, I would say it's useful because, you know, David's life goes through a lot of highs and lows. And so imagining David in utter ecstasy and celebration, imagining David in moments of fear, in moments of sadness, in moments of depression, in moments of hope, right? It's all there within the course of his life. So there are times where some of the Psalms begin with statements like, "This is what David said at this place or at this time." Is it likely that David would have done that? Probably not. And they understand that because of the language and the just the scholarship indicates that he probably didn't write any of this, but imagining him saying it can be useful. So, and again, the Psalms are quoted at least in part or many times in full at many places within our service.
When you were talking about the order of service this morning, I was thinking about when the psalmist says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. That's exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
And when you start the service, before you actually get into the meat of it, you come in with thanksgiving and praise.
Right, exactly. And so, I mean, this idea of we're going into it with praise and such, and then only only later do we get into, hey, God, if you could do me a solid, here are things that we're looking for. And then saying thank you after it's all over. It doesn't always work linearly. It doesn't always there is, there is some mishmash in there, but that is your general idea. So anyway, those are some of the when you talk about the warm up, right? The warm up before we're in full stride. Birkot HaShachar, Psukei Zimra, that's certainly part of it. Now, I want to jump ahead to another feature of the service, which is after the morning Amidah, and that is the Torah service. And that's honestly the part of services that a lot of people know best. I think a big reason, honestly, has to do with the fact that, at least in many synagogues, a Torah service is more inclusive than other parts of the service. The Torah service, in the Torah service, we offer different people honors. Any adult Jew can potentially say the blessings before and after a Torah reading. Anyone trained to read from the Torah can potentially do so. So whereas you might have most of the service being led by, one or two people, a couple people can sing or what have you, now it's like, okay, let's all get involved. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Torah, like being there for the reading of the Torah, is so popular. Another reason is that when we celebrate people and their milestones, oftentimes we do so by offering them a chance to, depending on their skills, if they're celebrating milestone, we try to give them as much of the service as they want, and they can do. However, even if an adult Jew does not have that skill, getting up and saying the blessings over the Torah, that's something that, it's, if you're saying a couple of blessings, we have a large laminated card on the table, and we put it in Hebrew and in transliteration. So we try to make it accessible for anyone to do this. So that's another. So the inclusivity really makes a difference, and the idea that when we are celebrating something, usually that's a point where they are participating. Maybe they're participating in other ways too, but usually that's a pretty you can pretty much count on that. Another reason why it's popular is, maybe this is a little fancy word, the pageantry. The fact that twice a service, when we read the Torah, we have a parade, right? We are literally walking around with the Torah scroll, and the custom is that anyone can take, an object, a prayer book, a prayer shawl, or whatever it is, and touch the Torah as it walks by and give a quick kiss to that item. By the way, you don't have to be Jewish to do that. Anybody can do it. So, we love parades, don't we? We love them. We really enjoy them. So, how cool is that, right? We got a parade all the time. So I think that's another reason why reading Torah is a popular thing. Now, we read Torah every time we have a service on a Saturday morning. And by the way, I should also note that, we talked, I think, last week about minyan, about the importance of having 10 adult Jews in order to be able to do a complete service. That is the case also with reading Torah. So hence there's an extra motivation. Hey, we're reading Torah. Can you make it a services? We really like to be able to do it. So 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 when you're talking about okay. Well, so I want to actually get for a moment about the idea of a. Oh, okay. I lost my train of thought. It has returned on the tracks. So we read Torah on a Saturday morning, assuming that there is a minyan. We read Torah on a major holiday when there is a minyan. There's also a custom to read Torah, if you can get a minyan, every Monday and Thursday, regardless. Now, at Heskamuna, I know that there was a time when, I think pre-COVID, when there were at least some, attempts and successful attempts to have weekday services in which there would be a minyan, weekday morning services in which you'd get a minyan and the Torah would be read. That hasn't been ventured since. It may be a challenge. I have to say that there are conservative synagogues twice this size, three times this size, that often struggle to get a minyan on a weekday. Weekday mornings are tough. It's to get enough people who want to be up that early. And by that early, I mean, yeah, you can do it, at different times during the morning. However, for people who have a full morning schedule or start work at 9 or earlier, or they're commuting or whatever it is, usually a synagogue will have a weekday morning minyan starting at 7:15, 7:30. That's a tough ask. It's a tough ask to get 10 Jewish adults to all devote that time. And on days you read Torah, that service can last 45 minutes to an hour. That's a chunkier morning. I'm not dissuading anybody who makes the attempt to do so. I'm just saying that that's one of the reasons why it's a challenge for many synagogues to do it. You have to really be motivated to do it. But the idea is that on Mondays and Thursdays we read Torah. Why on Mondays and Thursdays? There are a couple of different explanations. So the typical spiritual explanation is that on Mondays and Thursdays, if you read Torah Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, even on weeks where there's no major holiday or anything like that, if you're able to read Torah those days, it means that you are going no more than 3 days without Torah. I mean, like you're reading Torah at least once over any 3-day period. And they point to the fact that in the book of Exodus, after the Israelites crossed the sea into freedom, 3 days later, they're whining about the water supply. And so the teaching goes, if our ancestors could go no more than 3 days without water, well, certainly, how can we be expected to go 3 days without Torah? That's the mystical explanation. The actual explanation of how it came to be is that in ancient times, at least among many communities, Mondays and Thursdays were marketplace days. And the idea was that they would have public readings at the marketplace because they knew they'd get people. Which is why when we have, the next time we want to do a weekday morning minyan, the best place might be Costco. or Walmart, or I don't know, or Kroger, I don't know.
Starbucks.
Do we read Torah at Sunday Minyan is the question. Not on a regular basis. We do if it is a special day. And by special day, we're talking about, for instance, Panera is another suggestion. Maybe Panera. Yeah, we got pastries afterwards. That's certainly true. On like so on a Sunday, like let's say a Sunday of like in which it is Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of a Jewish month. If that falls on a Sunday, we read Torah. Let's say the Sunday in which on Hanukkah. Hanukkah is, 8 days long. So there's always going to be a Sunday in there. We would read Torah, on that Sunday. But as a standard thing, no, Sunday mornings are not typically Torah reading days. So that has to do with so that's regarding the frequency of it. I do want to get back to the notion of the Torah service, which is that the idea of it having all right, well, why have a parade? Why have a procession? Well, it's meant to model our journey through the wilderness, right? Our journey through the wilderness involved, as you may realize, right, 40 years. And the idea was that I think it was about an average of 1 year per place. So there was a lot of moving around. And the Torah tells us that when the ark, right, the ark in which the commandments were held, maybe even a Torah scroll, depending on your belief, when it would proceed through the from one place to another, when they would move camp, they would recite certain prayers. And then when they came to a resting spot, they would say a couple of other prayers. Now, those prayers are actually described in the Torah. They're pretty brief. So what we've done by creating a processional is we are imitating that practice. We are recalling that part in biblical history. So that's why we have a parade. So it's and so and you can see, I mean, for those who were here at services yesterday, I mean, we had the good fortune of a lot of young kids, and they were walking by and there with a little stuffed animal Torah things, and everything like that, and they were I mean, it's it's something that it's a simple thing that people can get into, and it can be really nice. So that's our so those are some things behind the Torah service. Let's see. I think those are. I mean, listen, we can obviously go go very deep into other notions of prayer and different and different parts of different different accoutrement of prayer. I know this is going to be a little weird, but I'm going to actually, so the idea of the prayer shawl, the tzitzit, and the tefillin, I'm actually, I know maybe a little weird, but I'm actually waiting until February 9th to talk about it. Why am I waiting until then? Because there is a tradition among Jewish men's clubs across conservative synagogues that Super Bowl Sunday morning, is what we call the worldwide wrap, in which we encourage as many people as possible, women too, to wear tefillin, to wear the phylacteries.
Do you have to be Jewish?
So I would you certainly do not have to be Jewish to attend. Um, I think that you know, I don't think it'd be the worst thing to maybe try it on once for the sake of education. Maybe to not recite blessings while you're saying it. I don't, but so I might do that. There's also, I think here in the synagogue, we have some pairs of tefillin that are no longer valid, that are no longer kosher to use. And because of that, so maybe that could be something to practice on if that were, if that were something you wish to do. So that's so, and what I want to do, I'm going to be in Charleston that day, but I want to do I want to do that on Zoom on that day. I figured that way I'll just sort of tie it in with the Judaism 101 class. So yes, there are other, that would be another thing we could talk about in prayer, but I hope you'll understand that I want to wait to talk about that because I want to also include other people in the congregation who might, want to participate in that, whether in person or remotely. So I think I'm at a good stopping place when it comes to talking about that. We do have a few more minutes. So is there anything that anyone online would like to throw in? Anything for those who are here with me in the room? Okay. If we're good, I think that this is a good stopping place. I want to suggest that next week we're going to shift gears a bit and we're going to talk about kashrut. We're going to talk about laws, dietary laws, and because those are, I mean, in terms of basic Judaism, that's one of the biggies in the conservative movement. So I want to delve into that. So that'll be our next topic. And
how hard it is to keep kosher in East Tennessee.
yeah, we can talk about that. It's hard. It's hard. But a good thing is that there are a lot of steps you can take to go into that direction, which I think is an important thing for us to remember, right? That you don't have to go full bore into it.
No pun
No pun intended. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, make sure to eliminate the bore. That's the first thing. BOAR. But yeah, you don't have to jump in, right away to everything. So we can, what I think is important is to talk about the principles of it. And then, all right, what does it all mean? And what can we do on this? So I thank everybody for your time and your patience and everything like that. And I will see you next Sunday, 10 a.m.
Rabbi, can we have a minute?
So we can, let me stop the Zoom.
Okay.
And let me stop the Zoom. Can I actually give you guys a call?
Yeah.
I'll give you guys a call, okay?
All
All
right.
right. Thanks.